Hey, y'all. It's Danielle Branche-Brown. We are live. We are going to be joined today by a trusted colleague, Julie Miller. We're going to wait for her to get on. And then we are going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about the programming and all the things that we have going on at Branches of Life. We're going to talk about tips that we have as therapists for holistic well-being. Okay, we got Julie in here. Let's see.
Did it work?
It We did it. I know the last time we had a little bit of a struggle trying to get you on here.
Today, I don't know what happened last time.
Okay. I'm so glad this worked out for us. We're not going to do a whole lot of waiting for people to get on because we're also going to have the replay. And so we want it to flow when people watch it back instead of having to wait and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's been announced. All right, so hopefully people jump on. And honestly, if not, we always have great, fruitful, expanding conversations anyway. So it'll be helpful and good for us regardless. So how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing good today. I was looking forward to this. I'm like, you know what? I think we wanted into fun things, so I'm kind of excited what we end up talking about.
Oh, very good. We always get into fun things. We do. Okay, so let's start with some positive stuff. So this is how I like to start most of my meetings and things, and so I'm gonna translate that to the lives and the videos and such, because it's just my style, right? So what's going well, feeling good? Just to start with the positives, things that we can practice gratitude for, things that we can celebrate or give ourselves credit for, right? So what are some things that we can celebrate?
Things that I can say. I mean, I'll start professionally because it's a little bit the work that we're doing, but it's not all that, and it's bigger than just work is going well. But I'm kind of really imagined that the better I do with my self-care, the I seem to learn things faster and better, and I have more energy. Things that I spent 2 days in a webinar and wasn't completely brain dead and over it and could take things in. So really just seeing how much things just take care of yourself. Everything works out. I spent 2 days in a train. I spent 16 hours in training this week, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't torture.
Very good. Listen, that's something to celebrate, right? So recognizing the impact that your self-care has had on your ability to learn. That's such a good point because it's something that we don't really talk about often, right? But that is so true. The more burnt out and the less abundant I feel, the less cared for I feel, the more drained I am, the less receptive I am, right? The less engaged I am, the less energized I am, right? So I hear you. Hey, we got Tony on. Hey, Tony. All right, so I hear you. All right, so that's a very important thing to celebrate. I am celebrating my commitment to this yoga certification training that I'm doing. Woo woo! I'm very excited about it. I should be done more or less around my birthday, so December 1st. Okay, Sagittarius. So I am excited and proud of myself for the amount of time, energy, and work that I'm putting into that because it's something that does feel fulfilling and aligned with where I am and where I'm going. So very, very good. So I figured we could start today really delving into a little bit of how we met and how we know each other, right? Just talking about our history. And then we can start talking about any tips that we have for people around self-care, holistic wellness, right? What maybe talking to the folks about what our self-care journey has looked like, right? Each of us, different ebbs and flows of that, right? So wherever we want to start.
Would it make sense for me to talk about how I met you?
Let's do it.
I mean, was it 2014 or 15? When did we start doing group together? Because I don't know if it was right.
2014 was when I started working there, and then I think 2015 is when I started the helping with the group or co-coaching the group.
We started leading group together, so we were doing abuse intervention groups for women.
Mm-hmm.
A week, and just the two of us tackling this very big project.
Mm-hmm.
But then especially after evening groups, we would sit and talk for like hours about relationships and how to help people and what people could need to do better, what we need to do better, our own relationships. That it just that from that professional work into really bringing a lot of that into our own lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can definitely say that was probably one of the most growing experiences for me relationally, like recognizing the ways in which we could all learn something from abuse intervention. Like I definitely went in to that organization with some like judgment and biases and misconceptions about what relationship looked like, what love looked like. You know what I mean? So it definitely was eye-opening and clarifying, and also humbling in terms of working with folks and not villainizing them, right? Because a lot of folks that have not worked with abuse and abusive partners and things like that, abuse intervention, they wind up villainizing folks, but we don't gotta get into all that. So that's how we met. That could be a whole live, like healthy and unhealthy relationship type stuff.
Yeah, that's it. One takeaway from that, from a professional point of view, is with you in facilitating groups is probably one of the first times and one of the few times where I've regularly, over a long period of time, got to work with a co-facilitator that was kind of that I either had like interns who were good, but I was still in the team. There was a power differential. I was the team they were helping, or stuff where things really just kind of flew together and okay, somebody's going to cover this group for 6 weeks and you're going to work with them and then you're not going to see them again, or actually like a co-facilitator relationship with somebody, to work with somebody long enough, and somebody who I could work with, that there were people I worked with long enough, but we didn't have a similar view of what was supposed to be happening. And then there were people I worked with who we had that part, but everybody's job was always changing and moving. Right. So experience.
And that is the nature of not just nonprofit, but I think the mental health field in a general sense, that a lot of things are always rotating, right? There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of misalignment, misconception. There's a lot of lack of self-care and all these sorts of things. And so there is a lot of turnover and a lot of changing and a lot of like flexing and just like stretching yourself to fill in gaps that might not necessarily make sense to me. But anyway, so I hear you. So consistency was something that we got from each other. It was very grounding as an experience, and I'm so glad and happy to have you in my life from that. So now we are like real life friends.
Yeah.
Like we visit each other and hang out and grab lunch and coffee and all these sorts of things.
Even done this in the same place sometimes because we actually
see. Exactly. But in terms of professionally, right now we work together in the Unshame Untame, the human therapist program, right? And so when Shayla came on the IG Live, we spent some time talking about the development of that, like her contribution to that, because you two really have been huge like pieces of that. For me, like, this is not a thing that I feel like I created by myself. Like, I don't ever take that level of credit for this, for the development of this situation. And so honestly, you and Shayla have a huge part of like my heart and my thanks and gratitude for the contribution and the community and the safety and the vulnerability and the engagement and all the things when it comes to this program, right? So technically we started it like 5 years ago, really, when we started that peer supervision group, right?
Has it really been 5?
Say it again.
That's really been 5 years now. I guess it has.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Time just goes on by.
Let's go.
Right? So that was 5 years ago. And we really just started it because we all looked at each other and were like, do you feel supported? And then I looked at you, do you feel supported? And like, no. And then everybody's answer was no.
I think we even made 2 of us to start something, and then because hard 2 for that accountability part where we would be like, okay, and then it was so easy to reschedule or move when it's just one person, so that it kind of
That is so true. It definitely started with me and you trying to hold each other accountable and trying to follow through, and then realizing that like we give each other maybe a little bit too much grace and like flexibility. So maybe we need to bring some other folks in to help us and for it to feel a little bit more solid in terms of like the accountability portion, because we're very good at giving each other encouragement and grace and love, but maybe not always the accountability part. So then we expanded it, right? We started inviting people. It was a little bit scary because I didn't know what we had to offer, but also it was free. So it was like, we'll just see what it does, like what happens.
Invited people, I just kept showing up, so that was all you.
That is one of my gifts, and I'm learning to like acknowledge that for myself, that I am a people person. I love to connect with people, and I love to help other people connect with other people. Like I love being bridgy. Like that's my jam. It's my shit, right? So to be honest, it really is something that I'm trying to embody more and like celebrate more in myself instead of like trying to do everything on my own. So that was like one of the first business practices of me like reaching out and acknowledging that I was isolated and acknowledging that I didn't feel supported and like practicing that vulnerability. So then we came together and we were doing it for free for a while. What do you think some of the most important pieces of that first iteration of the group was? Like,
I think a lot of it was I think some was the commitment to the time. Enjoying the bringing, like being with people. But then I think without a leader, it kind of was a little like, yes, I'm really into things being kind of egalitarian and a group process and all, but sometimes you still like somebody needs to be the one to send reminder calls, like be the one to schedule things, or like, okay, we have 80 different ideas, what are we committing to? So I think it was probably just that it needed a little structure, because it was, I say that because that's kind of you.
I hear you, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. And honestly, it's so funny because my natural, like, knee-jerk way of showing up in groups is to not be the leader.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize that about me because I often step up to leader roles because I feel like it's maybe a skill of mine. But it's not always my knee-jerk reaction. I am very egalitarian, like, very, like, community collaborative, like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think what happens for me is like there's this thing that happens that's like, listen, somebody's got to do it, damn it.
Everyone's sitting and looking at each other that you
And so I think that winds up being the thing for me. And again, like you realize what some of your skills are and some of your gifts are, and you lean into those. So then we transitioned it into, because then I was like, wait a minute now. I'm doing a lot of work. Like I put a lot of energy and time and love and stuff. And then I went through a season of just like show enough burnout.
Yeah.
Like I went through a season of like personal, like human level tragedy, loss, grief. It was a lot of shit going on in my life. And so I could not pour into that space in that way anymore. Right. And also I was like going through this like phoenixy transition of recognizing what my worth was and like getting to a space of being able to ask for what I need and want, right? Like not having to, because that was, it's like not my knee-jerk reaction to do it. And so to do it and not have the exchange of like, hey now, what is this to you? It got to be not so abundant for me, if I'm going to be honest, right? It became almost burdensome. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. I don't think I've ever said that to any of
I
you.
see that being more of an obligation than a help, though, because it wasn't.
Yeah. Because it went from me building like a group that I could exist in and to like a responsibility.
Another job is overwhelming.
Yeah, truly a job that I wasn't getting paid for. But then again, like I said, I realized I was good at it.
Yeah.
And I think a huge part of the reason why it started to feel like that, it was because I was doing so many other things.
Yeah.
Like I was stretched so thin that just wound up being the thing that took the burner.
But it wasn't the thing, it was just the timing of the thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, as we like move, that's 5 years ago. So as we get to like 2020 and the pandemic and all these sorts of things, all of us again looked at each other and we're like, hey now, you feeling lonely again? You feeling isolated again? You feeling unsupported again? Right. And so, came together and then I was like, well, if I'm going to do it this time, I'm going to be getting paid though, right? Like I deserve to be getting paid if I'm going to take this role on again. Recognizing that again, it wasn't that the role was misaligned. It was the timing and it was the fact that I was not asking for what I needed.
Yeah.
In order to do that service, right? So it wasn't the task itself or the responsibility itself or the role itself. It was the lack of abundance from that role. Like, you know what I mean?
Even when you're in an aligned role, you still have to be supported. You still need the support to go to the right place. You can't do it all by yourself.
You just said that. I love that you just said that. Because that's so true, right? Just because you're doing something you love, just because something feels in alignment with you, you feel passionate about it, excited about it, you still need support in order for that thing to be abundant.
Yeah.
You have to.
More that I don't, if I had something that I was kind of okay at but not passionate about, it would be a lot easier to set boundaries, I think, too. It's, at least for me, it's harder to, when I care about something, it's harder to set those boundaries.
That is very true. Very good point. All right, so you do have to be more intentional. Right. And again, that's where the accountability comes in, to have folks around you that know the struggles, right? Like, I love the fact that I now have an administrative coordinator that I meet with every week who knows that I struggle with codependency.
Yeah.
She knows that I struggle to ask for what I need, right? Like, I have a funny story. I texted her like a couple of weeks ago and I was like, hey, that we're doing the Self-Care Academy, right? And the Self-Care Academy, if y'all don't know what it is like a gym membership for your heart, all right? So you subscribe and you can come to as many of the self-care classes as you want throughout the month. We have a lot, and we really have a bunch of different facilitators that come in and do the stuff. Okay. So I reached out to her and I was like, Danny, I'm thinking maybe we should come up with a base level subscription. I was like, what about $20 and you can come to up to 2 classes that month and you just pay the $20 a month. Then he was like, I'm not liking how you giving away, just giving.
Hour of your time. That's minimum wage.
He called me out so bad, Julie, but I was grateful for that, because what happens for me is when things aren't picking up at the pace that I feel they should, or like I want them to, I get panicky, and then my codependency gets triggered, and then I just want to I'm like, I'll just give you what you want then, versus holding my ground. Say it again.
They must be mad at me. I must do the thing.
Exactly. So then I'm trying to anyway, she was so helpful. She was like, I don't think we're going to do $20, Danielle. She was like, I don't think we're going to just let people come to class for $10. Cause anyway, so anyway, I say all that to say we need support. I love that you brought that up. Even when things align, we still need support. So as we have transitioned it to be what it is now, right, with more of the structure, and more of because now I can give it what I have, right? I can give from a place of outpour versus a place of reaching down at the bottom of the bag, right? I'm I'm able to
ketchup in the bottom, and you're like,
exactly. I'm not doing it like that anymore. I shall not pour from the bottom of the ketchup bottle anymore. I shall not shake and bang on the bottom of the ketchup bottle anymore in order to give to others. So, so now come on, that's an affirmation for y'all. That's an affirmation for all of us, right? As a unified collective, right? We shall not shake and bang the bottom of the ketchup bottle to give to others any longer. So now that I'm pouring from a more abundant place and I'm taking care of myself, like you said earlier, and so there is more room, more capacity. What have you found to be some of the most beneficial parts of this new version right now that we're a year in? I think our year anniversary is in 2 weeks. Woo woo.
I do think you hit it. It's the accountability that if I say to somebody I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. If I tell myself I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do it. Just yeah. Mm-hmm. But if I say to you I'm going to do it, and then I will get there, and then I'll be like, I'm so glad I did this, but I just have a hard time with that. Knowing something and doing something is a big gap in the middle.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Knowing somebody else is going to be there, that doing things with other people just for me makes, even though I am kind of an introvert into myself, it doesn't mean I don't want to do things with people. It just means I don't want to do things with 50 people I don't know that well, that I still I want one or two people around, or people I know. So I think some of it is also a little it is a community that you kind of know who people are, and you do a few things, and it's not, sometimes you do some professional time and they're so big and so anonymous. Yeah. There's something missing, even if the content's good.
Yeah.
Or that be trying some experiential thing out, and you're like, I don't really want to do this. So I think knowing people eases that a little bit. Mm-hmm. All things that I know I should do, but I maybe am not going to sit down with my schedule and be like, you know what, Thursday at 7, I'm going to do a collage. That's what ask me, hey, do you want to do a collage at 7 on Thursday? We'll be there with my collaging on. Right. I will put on my calendar collage at 7, and I'll get 3 minutes into it, and I'll be like, this is making a lot of paper. I'm going to have to vacuum. Whatever. I'm going to watch TV. Even in of sticking to it, but if I'm doing something, if there's something going on online and I'm kind of anonymous and in the crowds, I'll put it on background and start mopping the floor or a drawer, and you're like, I'm not really engaged in this, but where there's 4 people in it, it's a little rude to do that. There's a room to have your camera off and be vacuuming, and there's 4 people eating. I think like the community part of it is different. That I feel a certain level of commitment to community. I don't always feel it.
Mm-hmm. Commitment to community.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good phrase, right? Commitment to community, right? The accountability, the fact that it is not like a program where you get lost in the sauce or lost in the numbers.
There's another trauma one I do that has like it's a membership fee, and there's weekly things and workshops and different, but it's a couple hundred people, and it's really easy to just maybe put it on. Or then when I don't feel a commitment to it, it's easy to be like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'll listen to this later on Thursday when I get done with work. And that day never comes around too. So I feel even like the commitment of that, even of the time, like sometimes I'll have the best of intentions, but I hardly ever do any of the things that I pay for on that other one, because I'm always like, well, there's a recording of it. I'll go back later, or
Right.
no, I'm not there. And I think you've done it's, just from our conversations, I know you've kind of put that out there, really being mindful of creating an experience.
Right.
And I think you're mindful of the experience people are having. And
very good. Look at us. I'm like in this moment practicing the receiving of the affirmation, right? Like there is this part inside of me. You know, I'm always practicing authenticity. I like y'all to see the process, right? Because hiding it is not helpful for anybody. Because I want to be seen and validated for my experience, my process. And also, it's important for folks to recognize that they are not alone in the messiness of the process. But there's this part of me when you're giving the compliments and like giving the affirmation that's like, stop it, right? No, right? And like wants to minimize it or whatever. But I really appreciate you, and I receive it, and I'm practicing the receiving of that. Thank you. So the community, the attention that's paid to the experience, the accountability, the structure, right? Having a specific time that this is when this thing is happening, right? Not getting lost in the numbers, right? So thank you. So just to let y'all know, I know not everybody who follows my page or our page is a therapist, right? But what we're talking about right now is the Unshame Untame the Human Therapist program, right? It is a program that I started, again, with the collaboration and community and backing of my people, that is for therapists to come in and unshame their wounds, right? Unpack, heal, suture their wounds that they accrued, inside and outside of the field, right? Recognizing that all of those things are one thing, right? Like your experience here is not separated and compartmentalized and fragmented into pieces. It's all one thing. And so we honor that in this space. And then to untame and hold yourself accountable for the forward movement and the alignment of who you want to be in this field and in this world, right? And then building that community, building that those muscles. Honestly, it's a practice. A lot of what we're doing is a practice of like building the muscle. Like I said, that's one of the things that I'm working on is receiving affirmation, receiving compliment, not brushing it off, not minimizing it. That's a practice. It is a muscle, a skill that my folks are holding me accountable for doing. And so anyway, we do all of that. It is a subscription. Again, another thing that I'm working on, right? Asking for what I'm worth, okay? But if you want to check that out, you can look at our links in the bio. We have a link tree with all that information on there. We meet once a month for 90 minutes in the group setting. We have the Instagram group messenger that we use, where we talk in there and support each other throughout, encourage each other throughout the week. We do every Wednesday, we do a check-in on weekly Wednesday wins, right? To help encourage us to celebrate, because that's not always what we're doing. A lot of times we're moving and grooving with our heads down and not actually paying attention to the things that we're doing well or the things that are happening for us that feel good. All right. And then we're also getting ready to start a new thing this month, right, Julie? I don't know if I'm pretty sure I told you this, but on the fourth week of the month, I'm going to be doing more of a one-on-one check-in with your goals. So it'll be an extra accountability piece, right? So the fourth week of the month, I'm going to check in with you, sending you a video of all of the accountability points that you gave me.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to be speaking those to you, and then my request of you is to either give a written response back to the ways in which you've worked on those, or to send a video back to me with the ways in which you've worked on those, right? So just an extra little accountability step.
They're always a little bit.
It's an extra piece, and it's to fill in that gap, because I know when we only meet once a month, it's easy to get lost in the time of that month. It really is. So anyhow, that's the Unshame and Untame the Human Therapist program. And then I wanted to leave the folks with one self-care tip, tool, piece of advice, or whatever that we want to give. Okay.
Self-care. Well, I'm trying to think of, because I do think I was really, you saying something about practice was really resonating. So I'm trying to think of things that are practice. Although interesting for self-soothing, which this has been really on my mind since I was in a training earlier on in the week, is kind of just a nice self-soothing thing that I picked up that I've actually found is really helpful in session to refocus myself. And I showed it to people, but sometimes I show it to people just because I want to do it.
I love that.
Actually, up some of our old neural memories of thumb sucking, but in a place that's a little weird sometimes. I'm not going to advise people hey, and everything will be fine. So you hold your hands like this.
Okay.
Other hand over your thumb, so you kind of hold into your thumb with your whole hand. And a little bit of pressure, almost kind of pull. So it almost feels a little bit of tension and heat on your thumb. And then you kind of just close your hands and put your hands in your lap. And then you can kind of tug on your thumb. You can squeeze your hand over your thumb. If you're needing to calm yourself down, or you're finding mine is more I'm getting distracted and I can't pay attention sometimes.
Okay.
And then
that's soothing.
Yourself down a little bit.
Okay, so hand out, hand around thumb.
Yeah, and then you kind of just close it in a big ball. But then while your thumb's in the ball, you can kind of squeeze your thumb while your hand's all kind of, and you can't really tell that you're squeezing your thumb when you look at your hand, but it kind of it's just a soothing repetition to help calm the vagus nerve a little bit. And I have found that really helpful this week, especially when you're sitting like this all day long.
Right.
It's hands on my knees and just sit like that to just kind of down regulate a little bit.
Right. Sure.
Myself.
I'm absolutely going to be utilizing that as a tool and a strategy. I'm always looking for stuff to regulate my nervous system and bring me back down, okay?
Oh, no.
As somebody with generalized anxiety disorder, you got to be always looking for the strategies. I'm going to cheat and use the one that we said earlier, which is, I'm just stealing this from you. You have to have support. It does not matter whether you could be living your best, most aligned, most alive, light-filled life. You hear me? You could be really right, and you'd still have limits, period. But without support, there are so many more limitations.
Definitely. They're just gonna support helps you expand that limit.
Absolutely. All right. So making sure that no matter what you're doing, you have a safe space to do it. Right? That there's safety and support, and you're tapping into your community and your social support system and not isolating yourself, trying to do everything on your own. Okay. I spent a long time trying that. And it never really fully works. So very good. Thank you so much, Julie, for joining me on IG Live. I had such a great time. I always love talking to you. Okay. And I'm sure I'll talk to you like soon. All right. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you and hope you got something from our conversation. All right. And we'll see you next time. Much love and light.
Mm-hmm.